Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 204, The Awkward Silence, all about social anxiety. Well, welcome back to this month, which has been focused on one of the biggest things I work with clients around, and often the biggest soul killer in their life, and that is fear and anxiety. We've been talking about anxiety all month, and today we're going to get into a part of anxiety, or a type of anxiety, that is so misunderstood and I think often hidden from others because of the vicious cycle of shame and embarrassment of even having it, and that is social anxiety. I have worked many years with clients around this issue, and I've learned a lot. I find that being able to relax and be in the moment and connect with others is so important to having a fulfilling life, or maybe even actually living at all, that I'm designing an entire learning experience to help more people heal from it. All right, so where does social anxiety come from? Well, there are a lot of different theories and a lot of different thoughts, and it's probably not just one thing. Personally, I think it's more some things than others. One of the ideas is that it could have to do a little bit with brain chemistry. Maybe someone is predisposed because of an imbalance in their brain. The next one, which I think is the biggest culprit, is childhood experiences. Traumatic experiences like bullying, neglect, or abuse during childhood would make sense, would contribute to the development of social anxiety later in life. Even the emotional experiences, I think, that seem so benign can have a huge impact on a kid's self-esteem. I mean, just being ignored or talked out of what we think and feel is enough to make us doubt that we have something valuable to say. And we're going to get more into that later. There's cognitive factors. People with social anxiety often have, of course, negative thoughts and beliefs about themselves, about other people, about how the social situation is going to go. And this has a self-fulfilling prophecy effect, of course, and it just compounds the idea that being social is bad. And social learning, observing the anxious behavior of others, especially our parents, our caregivers, our siblings, can really increase the likelihood of developing it as well. I think it's definitely modeled and encouraged in families. You'll learn how to deal with life at the dinner table. Then there are cultural factors, like societal or cultural expectations can contribute to social anxiety. For example, in some cultures, there might be a strong emphasis on conformity and avoiding social embarrassment. So that can lead to social anxiety because you don't want to say the wrong thing and shame your family, as an example. Now, the awkward silence is a term commonly used to describe an uncomfortable situation when there's a sudden pause or a lack of conversation in social settings. And for people with social anxiety, these silences can be really stressful. And then they can trigger feelings of anxiety, self-consciousness, and inadequacy, because they feel like they should be the only ones keeping the conversation going. And that's why there's so much avoidance of social situations, due to their belief that they're going to be judged, they're going to be rejected or embarrassed. They often feel really self-conscious and worry that they're going to say or do something wrong, leading to a negative evaluation from others. Now, if that doesn't come from early experiences, where does it come from? You had to have had those experiences to think that that's possible. And then with the awkward silence, people with social anxiety might feel pressure to keep the conversation going because they want to avoid uncomfortable pauses, because those increase their anxiety levels. They may also struggle with initiating conversations or responding to other people, so it makes it really hard for them to connect. So it's such a compounding thing. Of course, now we understand why people want to avoid social situations altogether where they don't know people very well, because it just reinforces their anxious thoughts, but it also creates isolation. And remember, we get no healthy mirroring when we're by ourselves. We can't grow, we can't heal, we can't connect by ourselves. So those are some of the origins of social anxiety, and here are some more of the facets. One of the biggest ones is using our voice. I mean, being firm, being strong, risking conflict, being vulnerable, because we are revealing our vulnerable parts when we connect with someone. Using our voice and being firm can be challenging for people with social anxiety because, of course, it's taking a risk and potentially confronting conflict and having rejection be possible. When you have a history of negative experiences in social situations, like being criticized or rejected by your older brother, let's say, you're going to develop a fear of speaking up or asserting yourself because you don't want to be judged or rejected again. Being vulnerable means revealing your inner thoughts and feelings, and that can bring up a lot of anxiety and shame, especially if you have the experience in the past where you did that and people were not safe and it did not go well. So people with social anxiety put on the mask, right? The social mask. And they tend to hide their true selves to avoid negative evaluation. And they struggle to be vulnerable and connect. But here's the thing. That's why it's so devastatingly anxiety-provoking to have a conversation with someone and try to keep it going if you're not relaxed and in the moment and just being genuine and sharing who you are. Because using our voice and being vulnerable can be so empowering and help us build stronger connections with other people. When we have social anxiety and we practice speaking up and asserting ourselves in a respectful and assertive manner, we really actually can increase our self-confidence and reduce our anxiety about potential conflict that might happen or possible rejection. When we practice over and over again, 3 forward, 2 back, messy, stressful, but when we practice revealing our true selves with safe people and expressing our emotions in a safe and supportive environment, we can deepen connection with other people and then have a greater sense of belonging, which then feeds our confidence. So you create a healthy cycle while you're undoing the vicious compounding cycle that we talked about a moment ago. And that's why coaching can be so helpful if you have social anxiety, because a coach can help you challenge your negative beliefs about yourself, about other people, about what happened in the past, develop assertiveness skills, and gradually expose yourself to social situations that involve risk-taking and vulnerability. Because you can't heal social anxiety staying home. You can't. Healing, finding acceptance, and commitment to changing, I think, can be very helpful in increasing your self-compassion, reducing your shame, which then, in turn, can make it much easier to be vulnerable and authentic. The other area that people with social anxiety struggle with is saying no, having boundaries, taking care of ourselves out in public, in a group, on a date, or at lunch. This also means asking for what we need. Maybe for our food to be ready at the restaurant. Maybe for someone to wait 10 minutes for us because we're running behind. Saying no and setting boundaries is such an important skill, especially if you have social anxiety, because it's going to allow you to take care of yourself and prioritize your own needs appropriately in situations. Because people with social anxiety might have a tendency to say yes, yes, yes to social invites or requests, even if they don't want to, or if it causes them discomfort and or anxiety. And then this can lead to feelings of resentment, exhaustion, and burnout, which can then reinforce negative beliefs about yourself because you see yourself now as a people pleaser or a pushover. I don't think we can feel good about ourselves socially without boundaries. Setting boundaries involves being clear and assertive about your needs, your desires, and your limitations. This can mean saying no to a social invite or request that don't align with your priorities or values at the moment. Maybe setting limits on the amount of time or energy you're willing to devote to a social activity. Maybe you'll go to the party for an hour because you have a lot going on. It can also mean requesting a specific menu item at a restaurant, or maybe asking for a quiet space to take a break from a busy social event. Taking care of yourself. Learning to set boundaries in social situations can be really challenging for people with social anxiety because it means taking a risk and potentially facing conflict or rejection. However, it is such an important form of self-care because it can increase your self-respect, reduce your anxiety, and improve your overall well-being. And then other people are going to want to be around you more, which can reinforce you wanting to be around them. And that's where coaching, again, can come in and help you learn assertiveness skills, practice setting boundaries in a supportive environment, challenge those negative beliefs about yourself, work on the people pleaser stuff, and develop more realistic and self-compassionate beliefs. Because a lot of this is, you came into this, if you have social anxiety, you came into this with a distorted sense of self and others. You can also learn techniques for managing anxiety and stress when you're out there in public. Maybe deep breathing, mindfulness, ways to help you feel more calm and grounded and present. Okay, so another thing that people with social anxiety really struggle to do and don't want to admit that they struggle to do is to be able to join the fun. Relaxing and having fun can be really difficult if you have social anxiety because you're probably constantly vigilant. You're worried about being judged, rejected, or, God forbid, being embarrassed. So these anxious thoughts can also lead to physical symptoms like you're tense, you're sweating, maybe you're trembling, your heart's racing. How are you going to feel calm and relaxed if you're so on edge and vigilant? It makes you so self-conscious, which can make it so difficult to just enjoy yourself. You're probably worried that you're being watched or evaluated by others, even though they have better things to do. You're going to be so overly self-aware and uncomfortable. Hello, perfectionism stress. And those of you who struggle with know exactly what I'm talking about. So again, you're probably going to want to avoid fun things, and it's going to make you feel more isolated and lonelier. And then when you do go out again and try something, it's going to be harder. So much about anxiety work is desensitization, desensitizing yourself to the fear that it's not going to be okay by doing it. And eventually it's starting to feel great. Now, along with this struggle to join in the fun is being able to relax and be open to new experiences. People with social anxiety tell me all the time, they like their routine, they like to be safe, and they like to be in control. Like everything we've talked about up to this point is all about wanting to control the outcome, wanting to have impression management happen, where you socially have control over what people think of you. And we can't do that. And it makes us so stressed out and so tense. So being able to relax and be open to new experiences can be terrifying for people with social anxiety. Because you don't want to go out of your comfort zone. You're going to limit your exposure to new experiences and opportunities. What if you're judged on how much you know about that new activity? Or maybe how competent you are at it? Maybe you have to feel like you can do it perfectly before you will participate. See, when there's an unfamiliar situation, there's uncertainty about what you can expect or how other people might react to you. You're going to worry about making mistakes or embarrassing yourself. It's going to cause you to feel on edge and hypervigilant. And think about all the self-doubt and negative self-talk that's going on. That's going to prevent you from taking a risk or trying new things. And you're going to have a tendency to focus on potential negative outcomes rather than positive ones because you're trying to protect yourself from being disappointed or hurt or embarrassed again. This is why social anxiety, shame, and perfectionism, I think, are all interconnected and reinforce each other tremendously in this awful, vicious cycle. Perfectionism, the tendency to set high and unrealistic standards for ourselves, and to be overly critical of our mistakes and shortcomings. People with social anxiety often have high levels of perfectionism because they believe they must perform flawlessly in social situations to avoid negative evaluation or rejection. When we have social anxiety and we think we might have failed or made a mistake in a social situation, we can experience intense feelings of shame, that deep unworthiness and belief that our flaws and our mistakes are unacceptable to others. It's not good enough. We can feel powerless, isolated, and disconnected from other people, which then again further reinforces social anxiety and disconnect. And I have people tell me all the time how they will lay in bed at night and obsess endlessly about a conversation or an interaction that they had earlier where they didn't do it perfectly. And they keep going over and over what they said and what the other person said and what they should have said and why couldn't they say that? It's awful. And that's why, of course, there's avoidance. I mean, you're going to avoid situations that might trigger feelings of shame or failure for you. It makes perfect sense. And that might be a short-term solution to alleviate your anxiety, but it also reinforces your feelings of shame and increases the severity of your symptoms over time. It is not the answer. Guys, that's why I'm building this course, because it isn't just social anxiety. It's a lot of things, like early emotional and other trauma, like lack of confidence, like shame and perfectionism, and all the avoidant behaviors that have been so entrenched you feel like they're normal. The course will walk you through what happened, what you struggle with, and how to work through it, and come out the other side a hell of a lot more confident and happier. Coaching can really help you work through these issues and develop healthier patterns in your relationships and in your life. I help clients all the time look at their environments, both early and current ones, and look at the impacts and changes they might need to make to have a better, and I bet more realistic outlook on life. To look at what is really possible based on evidence, not fear of protecting themselves from being rejected, making a mistake, or dealing with conflict. So today we talked about social anxiety and how it isn't just being socially anxious in a vacuum, but rather I think an interplay of shame, perfectionism, and early emotional trauma. We explored the different facets of this struggle, from avoiding social situations, avoiding conflict, and of being rejected, but how this can profoundly impact your life, how it can limit your life. Social anxiety keeps you from using your voice, from asking for what you need, or even being yourself. It keeps you from relaxing enough to enjoy engagements and have new adventures. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have some things you can focus on this month around owning your life. If you struggle with social anxiety, you can change this, and you can work on it, and you can make it so much better. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.